to science, common things that everybody should know. My name is Mr. Kermer, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about some of the cool science ideas that are out there that I think everybody should know. To start with, first program, I'm going to talk about the nature of science. There's kind of a couple parts to this, but I want to start with the basic idea of what science is all about. So, what is science? Well, science by definition is the investigation of the world around us. So what that means is I look at something in the world and I think I want to know what that's about, and I try to answer the question that I posed. So I'm going to start with a very simple example to sort of illustrate my idea here with you, right? And that is a question like this. A question that says, if I had two objects and I was to drop them on the ground at the same time, which one would hit the ground first? Two objects, let them go at the exact same time, which one hits the ground first, right? Key to that is, what if those are of different masses? A heavy object and a light object. So let me take two objects. For example, I have a pen here, and on my shelf here, I have a book, titled Educated, of course. That's kind of appropriate. So if I take these two objects and I hold them up, I have to drop them down to the ground, right? Before I do that, let's just talk about this. So if I was to give this question to maybe, or if you came up with this question when you were like a 2-year-old, like a child, let's say, preschool, how would you get the answer to that? Well, I know what some of you are going to say, but in reality, I think what most of us would do when we were 2 years old is we would ask our mom. Because believe it or not, when you were 2 years old, your mom knew everything. Your mom and dad, your big brother, your teacher, your babysitter, there were bigger people than you that knew all the answers. And when you had questions, you asked them. If you don't believe me, go spend some time with a 2-year-old and see what they have to say, because they're going to ask a million questions. Why are you doing that? What's happening there? How come that's guitar sitting on there? What's that light behind me? There's 1,000 things that they want to know, and they come all the time. Well, that is how most societies and cultures for most of human history, for our thousands of years of human history, have dealt with questions. They've gone to someone who they think knows the answer, whether it be the medicine doctor, the chief, the king, the ruler, whoever it may have been in that culture. When a society or a group had a question, that's how they answered those questions, right? And it was no different about 2,500 years ago in the times of the Greeks. The Greeks had these individuals called philosophers. And a philosopher's job was to think about problems like this and come up with an answer. So instead of having rulers or kings that did this, in a more democratic society that the Greeks ran just 2,500 years ago, they would go to the philosophers. And this exact same question, take a heavy object and a light object, and they're falling to the ground. What is the answer to that? Which object hits the ground first? 2,500 years ago, this question fell in the lap of a man named Aristotle, very famous philosopher, very intelligent man. And he did what Greeks did at the time. He went away with the question, he thought about it for a while, and then he came up with an answer, right? In science, remember, the investigation starts with a problem or a question. So our question is, if I have two objects of different weights, different masses, a heavy and a light object, and I drop them to the ground, which is going to hit the ground first? So there are actually 3 good answers to this question, right? There's 3 good answers. In science, we call those good answers hypotheses. So a hypothesis is a reasonable answer to a question that's posed by science. So what are the 3 reasonable questions? Well, hopefully you can think of the 3 possible ones themselves. There are 3 combinations. I drop these at the same time. The heavier object, the book, hits the ground first. Hypothesis number 1. Hypothesis number 2, that the lighter object will hit the ground first. And hypothesis number 3 is that they will hit the ground at the same time. Okay? So that question came to Aristotle, and what Aristotle's answer to that was, after thinking about this, simply was that the heavy object, being heavier, would hit the ground first. Okay? So, excellent. So we have an answer to a question. Wait, I know what you're going to say. Mr. Kermer, hold on. Hold the horses here. This is not right. You're right. What do you want to do? I know what you want to do. So I'm going to pause for a second. You can actually pause the video. And then I want you to go away and to try it. Find a heavy object and a light object. Don't find something that's breakable in your house. Don't take your mom's, nice vase and drop that down to the ground. Right? Take something like a book and a pen, something that is, easy to drop. And I want you to try it yourself. Try to hold them up and release them at the same time and see what happens. Okay, and I'm going to give you a minute to do that. I'm going to pause the video and we will come back with that. Okay, did you try? Let's see. We take the two objects. I'll do it up here so you can see. Take the two objects, draw them at the same time. Do it again because it's so much fun. There. If you tried that, you see that the two objects hit at exactly the same time. Well, it's not the first person that tried this problem, I'm sure, but there was a very significant man about 500 years ago named Galileo. And what Galileo did was he did that exact same thing. And as I said, probably not the first person in the world ever to do that, but what he did about it changed the world forever. And that's going to be the focus for our next video.